Hey everyone, my name is Zach. I'm a 23-year-old competitive bowler from Canada, currently living in Montreal. Welcome back to the Comp Climb training series, where I record most of my training, provide in-depth analysis of every session, and just chat about climbing with an emphasis on competition. So here we are, finally at the last North American Cup of the season, taking place in a city called Canada, which is just outside Ottawa, which is the capital city of the country. And yeah, this is like the culmination of months and months of dedicated training to the North American Cup season. Going into this season of competing, I realized it's actually been like a couple years since I've done a full season of comps with like lots of comps and lots of targeted training for a full season of competing. And yeah, like in recent years, I've kind of just been doing a comp here and there. My motivation has been coming and going. And so my goal for this year was to dedicate like a full year's worth of training and intention to the North American Cup season in particular, as well as like Canadian Nationals and the high performance comp, like all of the important comps. I wanted to do them all rather than skipping out on some here or there. And so anyway, the point is it's been getting really tiring, especially mentally, to sort of be on and focused throughout all of the training and the comps. And so going into this event, I was quite excited to like finally finish off the very intense, hyper competitive part of my season. And then after this event, we can kind of chill a bit more, have some more fun training, do some fun competitions with less pressure to perform. And yeah, like take almost like a few months to just enjoy climbing even more and refuel for the next season of competing. So going into this event, I'm still feeling like my laser focus, and I want to use every little last bit of like hyper focused dedication that I have left in the tank and put it towards this event. So here we are for the qualifications. And as you may have been seeing, I'm kind of going crazy on this first boulder here. So this boulder is quite crazy, actually. This first move is a lot harder than it looks. When I looked at this boulder, I thought, okay, the first move looks like a simple jump into an undercling, into a smear. But the undercling is pretty slopey, and you're like firing into this position with a lot of force, and it makes for a very violent jump move. It was a lot of fun though, and satisfying to finally stick. And then you saw a couple tries ago, I had a foot slip at the finish here, and so I took a little bit of extra time to place it well for this finish move, and I was able to get kind of like a buzzer beater on this first boulder. And already like that was like an intense way to start the qualifying round, right? You know, I kind of barely got top of that boulder. And it was definitely pretty stressful. We could tell while we were sitting in ISO. I guess I haven't mentioned that yet, by the way. The format of this qualification round is your standard like World Cup qualifying format, where we have 5 boulders to try, and we all sit in isolation, and you know, we don't get to watch each other climb, which is nice. This is definitely the format I prefer instead of the Vail qualifying format, where we have like 8 boulders and it's the scramble format. So I was definitely appreciating the ISO format, as were most people. But yeah, anyway, while we were sitting in ISO, we could get a pretty good idea that the boulders were hard sounding. Like we weren't hearing many cheers, and climbers weren't coming back early, like back into the transit zone, which meant that they were spending their full 5 minutes trying their respective boulders. And yeah, so going out to this round of boulders, I was ready to get smacked, basically. And we can see that I'm doing a good job of getting smacked here on this boulder. So this thing, I was not able to do anything on. If I had to pick a line of holds that are probably the ones that I'm worst at out of any hold, it would be these two white holds here at the start. So this is a hold brand called Snap, and they use them a lot at Beta Block. Also, I'll just quickly point out, right now I have kind of like this scrape you can see on my knee that I got, I guess, while I was trying boulder 1. And if you have any bit of I guess wet blood is the threshold, or what they use to determine their decision, you have to stop climbing until you bandage it up or tape it up. And this is just a safety rule so that climbers aren't spreading germs between each other. It's kind of an annoying rule a lot of the time. If you have a little scrape on your knee, chances are you're really not going to be getting it all over the holds, but luckily it wasn't affecting me too much in this situation. It kind of ate up 30 seconds of my time, and I wasn't really making any progress on that boulder anyway. So if there's any instance that I'd want to get a blood technical, it would be on the boulder where I can't get my butt off the ground. So you can see I'm sporting some green bandage on my knee now so that I don't get stopped from climbing again because my knee is bleeding. But yeah, those white holds on that boulder, the Snap circle slopers, they're always on boulders at Beta Block, and I always struggle with them so much. I don't know what it is about those holds. I try to grab them in every which way possible, and I guess I don't know, it's the palms of my hand feel really weak trying to squeeze those slopers, and I really have never got the hang of them. So I wasn't able to do anything on that boulder, which saw a few tops, and a lot of people stuck the zone on that. So yeah, I was just really not vibing with that last one, which meant that it was actually, at this point, I was really glad that I topped the first boulder, because if I didn't, I'd be up here trying boulder 3 with no tops under my belt, and that would be pretty stressful actually. So I was really thankful for my top of boulder 1 at this point. But now this third boulder that we're trying here. So when I turned around and first looked at this thing, I thought that it looked impossible. This wall is super, super steep, and these holds just look so bad. But luckily this left hand that I campus to is definitely got a bit of in cut, and it's pretty decent. And then the zone is a bit better than it looked as well. And same thing with these crimps. So this boulder was definitely more doable than it looked. And here we go on my second try. I'm able to stick the crux move out to the last crimp. And then carrying on from the Veil theme of doing weird stuff at the end of boulders, I decided to do some more weird stuff here in the qualifying round. But honestly, I think that was actually probably the cleanest way to do the ending sequence of that boulder, to kind of go foot first and then double toe hook. I would imagine that the setters kind of just intended it as a campus, especially since when I came down, they were kind of laughing at me as though I was doing something strange. So I guess the double toe hook was not intended, and maybe it was just meant to be a face the crowd campus move. But it just made sense to add some toe hooks for extra stability to secure that finish. So anyway, after topping that third boulder, I definitely felt some of the pressure was off. Having 2 tops under my belt so far in what was proving to be a really hard round of boulders was definitely relieving, and I knew that I liked my chances of making the semifinal round the next day if I just kept it together on these last 2 boulders. And also, I actually ended up being the only top of that last boulder, of boulder 3, in this whole qualification round, which was super fun. It's been quite a while actually since I was the only person to top a boulder in a round. I think the last instance of this actually was the North American Cup that I won like 2 years ago now, maybe even 3 years ago. It was a semifinal boulder where I did this. But yeah, that's like, honestly, that's kind of like the best feeling in competing, even more so than winning comps. To be the only person to do a boulder in a round is a very special feeling. And I haven't had that too many times in my career. So that was a fun instance of that. And so let's check out this boulder that I'm trying here. I clearly decided that I was just going to throw my attempts out the window on this boulder. And you can see I've been trying this one a lot. I don't really know why it took me so long to figure out this good running sequence. I was really messing around a lot with some weird betas on this boulder, like some weird foot sequences. But then when I finally commit to just going right, left, and then catch both hands, it works out a lot better. And I'm able to stick the move twice in a row, actually. And this last move is also pretty tricky. It's really hard to land your right foot on that foothold out there. And actually, fun fact, so if you missed the last episode where we were climbing with Alex, he's also competing in this event, and he probably did that fourth boulder the best out of anybody in the whole field. He got a super clean flash of that boulder and basically spent like 10 seconds on the wall. And yeah, that one was like super his style, and he was really psyched when he flashed that one. So let's check out this last boulder of the qualifying round. I felt like I climbed really well on this one, actually. This was a good feeling to get us end of this slab. And check this out. I do a little knee press on my left here. So this boulder, I think I used 2 tips of the day on this boulder, actually. The second example is going to be this last move, where I knew that it was going to be perfect for the dynamic inside flag, which is like Maddie's special move that she was the first instance of me seeing somebody do the dynamic inside flag. So she basically taught it to me, and then I stole it and used it as a tip of the day of mine. So yeah, we did the hand on the knee press and the inside flag for that slab, and got a very nice flash of that last boulder. It's always nice to flash a slab. And so we're moving into the semifinal round now. I qualified in 5th after the qualifiers, not getting the zone on the second boulder, like the one that I couldn't pull off the ground of. Definitely bumped me down a few spots, but 5th place was pretty good for the qualifying round, especially since in this field, it may not be as big as like the Vail comp and the Salt Lake City comp. It's actually like only half the size of those American events, but there's a lot of like strong dudes, like strong heavy hitters in this field. So this one is still like, I was definitely feeling very, very competitive during this round. Like we had both the McNamees were here. We had Matt Rodriguez, Hugo Dorval from Quebec City, and then lots of strong Americans too. We had Ethan Freudenheim and Isaac Leff, and I could keep naming names, but then we'd be here for a while. So, well, I'll leave it at that for the highlights. And so let's tune into this semifinal round. Going into this round, I was definitely very, very nervous. And the reason for this is because, especially after the Vail comp, after making finals in Vail, I now realized what I really wanted to accomplish in this North American Cup season, and that was to try and make every final. So, especially by doing a whole season of events and training for a whole season of comps, like one of the best results that you can have from doing a full season is just to achieve a nice level of consistency. And this is something I have struggled with a lot in the past, is to be consistent. And so by making every final, that would be a really nice like stamp on my season and a really good feeling. And so basically I realized just how much I wanted to achieve this, which led to some very nervous climbing that we're going to see in the semifinal round. And this first boulder is a good example of that. I was just feeling so shaky on my feet. I felt like I couldn't commit to the standard like foot cross through sequence on these two big blue things. So I end up going left foot to the better one and then doing this weird sequence where I crimp bolt holes and whatnot to end up in this position. And this last move to the blocked crimp was a very, very stressful move because I had to fight my way up this boulder to get there, and I knew that it was going to be hard to replicate. So that meant while I was staring down that blocked crimp finish, I knew I had one shot at this move and I had to do it now. And I was actually able to find a nice bit of composure in that instance and really lock in to snag that blocked crimp. And I've mentioned in the past how that kind of move is actually a strength of mine, and I'm good at latching those capped holds on my first attempt. And the trick is to really just stare at them, to like make eye contact with that crimp hold and not accidentally like slip into using your peripheral vision. And if you make an intent eye contact on your target hold that you want to grab, it's going to increase your chances of hitting it. And that's what I did on that last move. And so now let's check out the second semifinal boulder. So this move is a pretty new school kind of move where you do a toe catch and then you kind of have to pull with your toe in order to go in that direction. And so I've actually tried this move a few times in the gyms in Montreal. I think I've tried it at Alley Up Mile End like 2 or 3 times in particular. And this is another move that I'm not so good at. I still don't have a good understanding of the most optimal way to activate like which muscles and what to really emphasize on this move. And so I don't know if I consider it a weakness, but what I basically think is that I don't understand it well, and therefore I don't find that I have confidence when I'm doing this kind of move. So when I turned around and saw this move, also peeped that epic fall. That was a highlight from the comp for me. But yeah, when I turned around and saw this move, I definitely was nervous. I was scared. I knew that I was going to have to do some quick learning on the fly, especially because not only is this like a toe catch pull move, but it also adds like another element of coordination by having to do like a foot swap into a palm stab. Like this move is really crazy and is very, very cool. Like this is a very well set move. And I was actually really happy with the progress and the fast learning that I had on this boulder. Like my first few attempts looked like if I was to place bets on that guy trying this boulder, I would not expect him to be topping this thing. So I made some rapid progress on this boulder and was able to get another buzzer beater top of this. So that felt really, really good. And I had to fight my way up those first 2 boulders, and it was really, really rewarding. And I felt like I was setting myself up well for finals. And now as we're moving into this third boulder, I was obviously very excited to try this one. This boulder looked right up my alley, and I could tell that this one was like probably not getting topped, and I wanted to take this opportunity to show my stuff. But this one, I end up making like some tactical errors. So this first attempt I'm going to put on is going to end up being pretty good. This boulder is going to revolve around this first like pretty tricky 360 sequence on some crimps, which is definitely my style. And then it looks like there's a few ways to try and go up to this green pinch, but I opt for the undercling match and then go up right hand, and I like basically stick the move, but my right foot kind of slips off this volume. I don't actually know if I would be able to really move out of that position because the green pinch felt pretty bad. But anyway, the tactical error that I make on this boulder is this should have been a 2 attempt boulder. Like I'm pulling on here at about like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And I just don't know why I did this, honestly. I don't have a good reason. I definitely felt still a bit pumped from the last attempt. You can see I kind of just drop off. And I wasn't even like that nervous on this boulder, especially because I already had a couple tops under my belt, and I knew that this one was probably the hardest. So I honestly just kind of like brain farted and tried this boulder an extra time, which meant that my chances on this third attempt to stick that move were quite low, and it doesn't play out very well. But also in hindsight, I kind of wish I thought to go left hand to this green pinch. I feel like that could have been good beta, because then I could immediately step back on that crimp. But yeah, I was kind of bummed not to be able to show my stuff on that boulder. And I, like, as like a more power focused climber, I always just have like a problem with myself, like personally, when I don't do well on the power boulder, you know? It just kind of bothers me. And that's just like the competitor in me. So I was like, not upset with my performance on that boulder in regards to the round, but I was like, I wish that I could have been as cool as Matt Rodriguez and sent that boulder, since he was the only one to do that in the whole semifinal round. And that boulder is like such a Matt Rodriguez style boulder. I was not surprised to see him flash that thing. And then speaking of Matt Rodriguez style, we're going to be moving into a Zach style boulder. So I was very happy with the looks of this last semifinal boulder, because I feel really at home in these volume perches where like open hips are really helpful to find a stable position. And it helps me figure out this cruxy ending sequence quite well. And I was able to get a cool flash of this last boulder, which put me in second in the semifinal round behind Isaac Leff, who had the same tops as me, but he like flashed the first two boulders and only fell a couple times on the last one. And yeah, he really was the best of the semifinal round. And I was very psyched, of course, to accomplish my goal of making all of the finals for this North American Cup season. So let's take a quick look at the finalists. We got Hugo Dorval from Quebec City, like I mentioned, who is taking part in his first North American Cup final, which was super hype. And then we got the homie Matt Rodriguez, of course, making finals with his send of the power boulder. And then we have Ethan Freudenheim, who, for anyone who doesn't know of this guy, go check out his Instagram and find out how ridiculously strong he is. He can do some crazy stuff with weight strapped to him. And then we have Dylan Smith qualifying in third, who is a local crusher from Ontario and used to climb at my home gym as well, like my family gym, Climbers Rock, back in Ontario. And then we have some guy in the purple socks on the left, and then on the very left we have Isaac Leff from the US, who is super strong and super good with his attempts. Isaac has been super good with his attempts throughout this whole competition. He flashed a bunch of the qualies boulders, and same thing with the semifinal. So I actually had that in the back of my mind going into finals. I really needed to try and better my attempts if I wanted to keep up with Isaac. So let's set the stage for this final round. Going into this finals, for some reason, I was extremely toasted. I didn't have the level of power that I had in the qualifiers or the semifinal round. And it was very evident in ISO when I was trying to do my warm-up boulders, and I was falling on the boulders that I was able to do in the previous two rounds while I was warming up. And so this was really worrisome, because I'm trying to compete with some of the strongest guys in Canada and the US right now, who are all very, very strong. And if I'm not feeling at 100%, I don't have a chance at competing with these guys, especially because even at 100%, most of these dudes are already stronger than me. I don't consider myself one of the strongest in the field. I find that my strength as a competitor is being kind of like a fighter. And I'm able to fight my way up boulders well and figure out creative sequences that work well for me. But if we're talking about just pound for pound strength, I can't keep up with these guys. Especially in ISO while we're warming up, they're just doing these crazy moves that I can't even touch. And this first boulder is a good example of this. A lot of the guys were actually just able to jump from the purple pinch on the zone up to the next purple pinch. But you saw that I have fallen on this move twice already, and I've realized that I just can't do it right now. It's not going to happen. So I really take a second to think, is there some way that I can get up this boulder since I can't do the jump move? And you see I find this heel hook, and now all of a sudden I find myself on the last move with like not so much time on the clock, and I'm able to just fight my way up this boulder. And that, like I said, that's who I am as a competitor. I'm just gonna fight and claw my way up to the top of the boulder. And I find that I have to kind of bring out like 120% of my abilities to keep up with my competition in these North American Cup final rounds. Let's say that my competitors are able to bring out like 90% of their strengths and their abilities, maybe 95, maybe even 100. I have to bring out 120% if I want to have a chance. And that's just kind of like how I always feel, which is a stressful way to compete sometimes too, because it means that I gotta just be trying my hardest and I have no room for error sometimes, honestly. So moving on to the second boulder, I was definitely feeling like I was hopefully on a good upwards trajectory during this final round after clutching the top on boulder 1, especially since only Matt and I were actually able to top boulder 1. So I was saying that a lot of people were able to jump between the pinches on the last boulder, but a lot of people dropped the finish move. And the finish move was my style. So I was able to, that was like my lucky move on that boulder to edge me out and help myself take the lead for this final round along with Matt, who flashed the boulder. But going into the second climb, the pressure started to get to me a little bit for sure. Like I definitely would like to land on the podium for this event. That would be like a nice little goal of mine. And so I'm like trying to do this boulder and I'm not trusting my feet very well. I wasn't really relaxed enough. And I felt like my head was definitely a bit clouded with just thoughts that were distracting, and I wasn't thinking about the movement enough on this boulder. And I don't find my way up to the zone until the very end. So I only basically have time for one more attempt on this boulder while I'm trying it here. And I'm kind of stressing out, and I'm trying to find this left foot, which is a really slopey jib that's added to this volume. And I don't weight the foot super well, and I'm not able to do this foot stab. And this was like an example of kind of my shaky performance that I put on in this final round. So I was the only person to not drop the last move of this second boulder, actually. Everybody else fell going to the finish hold, and I didn't make it that far. And it's kind of funny. You can tell from the title of this video, I'm sure, that I was actually able to win this final round, which is such a bizarre feeling, honestly, because I felt like I was getting outclimbed in this final round by a lot of climbers. I sort of just fell my way up boulder 1, which edged me out the victory. But on boulder 2, I was definitely the weakest link. And even on this boulder here, I put on like a really weird performance where I don't remember the last time I tried to boulder this many times in 4 minutes. And we're gonna notice that I eventually find the sequence for this run, but it wasn't thanks to any critical thinking of mine. I kind of just threw myself at this boulder so many times that eventually my body accidentally figured a way to get to the zone. And that's usually not how I climb in a finals round. When I'm focused and I'm in the zone, I'm usually quite good for reading beta, and it's usually like a strength of mine. So I was really bothered that I wasn't taking enough time to really just look at this boulder, think about it critically, like how should I attack this running move? What's the best way I should carry my momentum? And instead, I just throw myself at this boulder too much. And it's kind of working, but I think I could have got to the zone a bit faster if I just thought about it a bit more. And this is kind of like another example of just the fighter in me coming out. like while I wasn't taking a second to think critically, my fighting skills were kind of just carrying, and I was almost just forcing my way through this move. And you see I eventually stick it with a nice foot bump sequence. And now we are lining up this finish move, which I initially read as this move I'm going to try here. I thought it was like going to be this cool dynamic move into a drop knee while you catch the finish crimp. But actually the two climbers who were able to top this boulder, Dylan Smith and Isaac Leff, just like statically mantled and then set the drop knee before they went up to the finish crimp, which makes a lot of sense, but I had it in my mind that it was a dynamic move. And honestly, the reason that I thought it was a dynamic move is because I thought that this was going to be like the setter's experimental move of the round. And like I mentioned, there's like a crazy smart setting team here for this event, and we have a lot of Canada's best setters on the crew. And so I was expecting some really, really creative boulders, which obviously turns out to be the case. Like all of these finals boulders are absolutely fire, especially this last one. Like this thing is mega. This is definitely my favorite boulder from the whole competition probably. And so I was almost I almost overthought a lot of the sequences sometimes, and was like looking for sort of revolutionary sequences because I know how smart these setters are. And I think on the ending of that third boulder, that's maybe what didn't help me out so much. So now listen, this fourth boulder is such a Zach style boulder, and I would love to try this boulder with a bit more power on my side. Like I said, I was gassed at the beginning of this final round, and by this point, I had basically nothing in the tank. While I was waiting to be called out for my attempts on this boulder, I was getting so fired up in ISO, trying to like activate all my adrenaline possible to try this boulder, but I was really kind of skeptical because I just didn't have the sauce anymore. And going into this boulder too, I thought that I would need to top it to win. I thought that I was actually behind Dylan and Isaac. I thought they did the third boulder faster than I did the first one, and I knew Matt missed the zone on 3. So anyway, I thought that I needed to top this boulder to win. So I was really trying to try hard on this thing, but I just did not have enough power for this boulder, especially because this would be like a pretty limit boulder, even with as much power as I could possibly have. But anyway, check out this attempt. This was a pretty good attempt. I find this really cool sequence where I come back down to this pinch in order to work my way to this undercling, and I kind of just like fumble this foot stab move. I wish I had a bit more focus on my side, and maybe I could have held that position. But anyway, I was like kind of mostly disappointed not to top this boulder because it didn't do the setters like exquisite work with this thing justice. And I was telling this to Caleb. I was like messaging him after the comp a bit, and I was saying like, man, you guys really nailed all of the finals boulders in terms of epicness, styles, difficulty, and actually just like all of the athletes in finals were kind of cooked, and we were all just really tired. And Boulder 2 didn't get any tops, and Boulder 4 didn't get any tops, but they were like, in my opinion, like perfectly set in terms of difficulty. And it was kind of our fault that the boulders weren't able to be properly brought to life. And that's honestly one of the things I get most bummed about when I don't do a boulder like that, is the setters did their job and they did it perfectly, but I wasn't able to do my part in order to put on like a really good show for finals. And it's also very motivating for training though, because I want to be able to do it next time and do an epic boulder like M4 for the crowd. So that's my takeaway from the boulders and finals. And I was very surprised to walk off the mat after failing to top Boulder 4 and then be told that I won the comp. I thought for sure that I was going to be second or third, and when I was told that I was first, I was very surprised and obviously very psyched. I wasn't like hyper motivated or like, you know, on try hard mode to really win this final round. I was more just satisfied with being consistent throughout the whole season and making every final. And I would like to land on the podium. That's always a nice feeling. But I was trying not to put too much pressure or emphasis on the win. But of course, when it's all said and done, that's like the cherry on top. And kind of like a perfect way to wrap up my North American Cup season in like a nice little ribbon. My results for this North American Cup season were way better than I would have expected, especially from my last couple of years of competing. I was 4th in the Salt Lake City event, 2nd in Vail, and then finished with a win here in Canada. So just a perfect season and like an even better level of consistency than I could have hoped for. So anyway, thanks again to all the setters and the organizers for putting on a really great event. Like I said, I thought the setters nailed the boulders through all the rounds. They were so much fun, and I appreciate all the hard work that you can tell that they put into it. And yeah, as for me, like I said, I'm very relieved that the hyper competitive part of my season is over and I can do some more fun training, do some more chill training, do a bit less training, and maybe try to get some more fun content out, climb with some more people, and yeah, just like be a bit experimental. And we still have some comps on the horizon. We've got a couple jackalope events coming up soon, but these are like more fun comps where there's much less pressure to perform. There's nothing on the line. And yeah, I can't wait to just have some more fun with training and do some fun comps. So yeah, look out for some more fun and creative content coming up next. We're just gonna kind of wing it from here. And I'll have like a sort of probably a loose schedule. I'm kind of OCD and I always like to have a training program, even if I'm not on like a strict regimen. But yeah, we'll definitely be flexible and try to climb with some people and probably travel to some places for training. So yeah, tune in for whatever's next. I myself don't know yet. Insert casual video outro here.